Hey now, welcome to 3x5 with Steve Bennett. I am Steve Bennett. It's episode 4. Last week, episode 3, we did the 1990s edition, and I promised for this week a 1980s edition, and I am nothing if I'm not a deliverer of promises. So today we have 3 lists, all from the 1980s, all from a different section of the 80s. I didn't go as crazy about making sure every single year of the decade is represented, although most of them are anyway. Before we get to that, I want to quickly thank everyone at the North-South Connection for having me on their channel. I want to thank Ryan for producing. I want to thank Justin, of course, for supporting. Aaron as well for his notes, which are always great. I want to thank everybody who's still listening and watching. We've lost about 90% of the audience since the first episode, so we're going to have to try to rebuild that. But if you're still with us, thank you. I appreciate it. Please like and subscribe and comment and do all those things they tell me to say, because if they didn't, I probably wouldn't say them because I'm embarrassed to say them. But I'm glad you're watching. 3 lists of 5, 3 new ones this week. We're going to go to the 80s. We did the 90s last week. Here we go. Let's start with rock albums. Last time we did rock albums from the middle part of the decade, I believe. This time we're going to start with it. That means 1980 to 1983. And let's start with this masterpiece from 1983, Metallica's Kill 'Em All, where it all started for Metallica, of course, their first album. I believe they recorded this in New Jersey. And it's got Whiplash and songs that they still play today, of course. But it's the beginning of an era. It's the start for Metallica. It's very heavy. Now, if the years were a little bit greater and I could have had Ride the Lightning, I probably would have had that in instead of Kill Them All, because it's my preferred record of the first 2. But Kill 'Em All is great, of course. Whiplash, my favorite on it. And many other really good ones that they still play today. So the start of it all for Metallica back in July 25th, 1983. Number 4, Shout at the Devil by Motley Crue. I mean, these guys look the part here, right? I mean, if you say, what year is this? Just look at the pictures. You might say 1983. This was released on September 23rd, 1983. Shout at the Devil, of course, maybe the big hit on it. But my favorite, Knock 'Em Dead Kid, is on this one. Shout out to Hollywood Dave's got Motley Crue on his arm, and in his heart, he bleeds it. Lots of drama with the Crew lately. Mick Mars is out. Him and Nikki Sixx are fighting through the media. Johnny Five is in, but the Crew live on. I remember when they came back when I was like about a senior in high school with Vince Neil, and what an impact that had when I first heard Afraid from the Generation Swine album. But this is back in the 80s. Shout at the Devil. And if you listen to nothing else on this record, listen to Knock 'Em Dead Kid with this sick riff by Mick Mars. And I mean, these guys were tough in the 80s. They're going to knock you dead, kid. Just look at them. Nothing tougher than that. Number 3, speaking of tough, Ozzy Osbourne is number 3 with Blizzard of Oz, starting the decade right, September 12th, 1980. And of course, Ozzy had left Black Sabbath, and the world awaited for what would Ozzy Osbourne be without Tony Iommi and Geezer Butler and Bill Ward? What was his post-Sabbath life going to be? And it was this, the Blizzard of Oz and Randy Rhoads and the incredible music they made together, like the world-famous Crazy Train and Mr. Crowley and all the other great songs that are on the Blizzard of Oz. It's pretty much hit after hit after hit. An unbelievable solo debut for Ozzy, and basically propelled his stardom into the 90s and beyond. He's a cultural icon now, kind of running on fumes. He's supposedly going to perform in the desert in the fall. I don't know if he can do that or not, but he's on the bill, I believe. So maybe that'll be one last show for him that's like a big concert. AC/DC's playing, Guns N' Roses Tool. I forget what they call it, but you can look it up. We'll see if Ozzy plays it. But this was the start of his solo career, and there was so many questions. What would Ozzy be without Black Sabbath? And he answered all those questions with a kick-ass record called Blizzard of Oz. I'm sure everyone has heard a song from it. Since at this point, is there anyone who hasn't at least heard Crazy Train at a sporting event or somewhere? I doubt it. All right, number 2, These guys burst on the scenes in the late 70s and took over rock and roll. It's Van Halen, Women and Children First, released March 26th, 1980. Their first record in the 80s. They do 1, 2, 3, 4 records in the 80s with Roth before he left. And then, of course, Van Hagar would start in 86 and on. But Women and Children First. I was between this and Fair Warning, which came out in 81. Went with Women and Children First. Just kind of felt like it's got more songs on it that I like. Fair Warning is certainly the more heavy record, but Women and Children First, Eddie Van Halen, who changed the game. I mean, he changed what rock and roll was. A true innovator. We say this often that people are innovators, and maybe they're not, but Eddie Van Halen was an innovator. We lost him a couple years ago, and I miss him to this day. But his sound is iconic and lives on today. If you haven't heard the new Extreme record, which might sound weird, but my producer is from Massachusetts, and so is Extreme, and their new record called 6 is unbelievable. And Nuno Betancourt seems to be channeling Eddie Vedder from the heavens on his guitar. So check that out if you can, if you want to hear what guitar rock is like in a post Eddie Van Halen world. It seems like Nuno has taken over the job as main man. So Women and Children First, number 2. And number 1, released February 12th, 1981 by the band Rush. Only 3 guys. It's Moving Pictures. And what I love about this cover is there's people moving pictures. See, and the name of it is Moving Pictures. So I like that cover. It's a good cover because of the guys who are moving the pictures. So one time I seen Rush. I've seen them many times, but this one time when I seen them, there was guys on the stage whenever they'd play a song for Moving Pictures. That would be Moving Pictures. I didn't know who they were, just guys in red suits like this, moving the pictures. But this is an iconic record from them. Tom Sawyer, Limelight, Red Barchetta, YYZ. Again, the whole A side, it's hits. And there's great stuff on the B side too. The Camera Eye is on the B side. Really, really great stuff here. But this is 3 guys at their creative and musical peak. Permanent Waves was before this. Could have easily put Permanent Waves on here. Right? But went with Moving Pictures, maybe because just a little bit more iconic, more hits. We could easily had Permanent Waves. And this album is sort of the transition into Signals, which would be their next record with Subdivisions, and sort of the start of the synth era for Rush. But not a lot of synth here. We're still in the guitar-driven era. It's kind of a bridge record, and the songs are just unbelievable. I mean, Limelight, they made a movie kind of around how much guys like to listen to Limelight. I think it's called I Love You, Man. Hopefully that's what it's called. But the song is the movie's basically about the song Limelight. And then, of course, Red Barchetta, a personal favorite of mine from this record. But I love Rush. I know they're polarizing. Not everyone likes his voice. But you can't say they're not unbelievable musicians. And the 3 of them are at their musical high here in the early 80s. My number 1 record of 1980 through 83. Let's recap it. We have Metallica, Kill 'Em All at 5. Motley Crue, Shout at the Devil at 4. Ozzy Osbourne, Blizzard of Oz at 3. Van Halen at 2. And Rush. Oh, Women and Children First was Van Halen. And then we have Rush, Moving Pictures, number 1. All right. What's next? Wrestling List. Brought to you by the 24-inch podcast. We got the best Hulk Hogan matches, 1984 to 86. Now, last episode, we did the best matches without Hulk Hogan. Even though I cheated a little bit and put the Rumble in that list. This time we're going to take the middle part of the decade, and we'll go from when he won the belt in 84 through 86. So the first 3 years of his title reign that would end in February of 88, which we did a video on. If you scroll down, you can find our video, the Canoso video, on the time that Hulk lost the belt, finally. But he's champion in all 5 of these matches, and we'll start with number 5 on Saturday Night's Main Event. Hulk Hogan and the Junkyard Dog defeat Hoss and Terry Funk, May 3rd, 1986. A really fun and great Saturday Night Main Event match. Did I say Saturday Night Live? I might have, but I meant Saturday Night's Main Event. It aired instead of Saturday Night Live. in the United States. So Hulk and JYD come to the ring, huge pop. Hulk's pretending to be Dog's pretending to be Hulk. They face the Funks, who have a ton of heat. Jimmy Hart is in the corner. The Funks are disgusting, just spitting tobacco, and they look like they smell like shit and cigarettes and just nasty. They got the branding iron, just real sons of bitches from Texas. And Hulk and JYD take care of business. That's my number 5 on the list. Number 4, Hulk Hogan pins Randy Savage in a lumberjack match at Madison Square Garden on February 17th, 1986. Now, of course, this picture is the Mega Powers exploding at WrestleMania 5, and that's where they're both known in terms of their feud, right? The big Mega Powers story and the explosion and the culmination at WrestleMania 5. But if you go back from here 4 years to 1985, Hulk and Savage had a really great run at MSG. 3 matches, and this is the culmination of that. It's a lumberjack match. The guys are all around the ring. I love lumberjack matches when I was a kid, and I always used to get pissed off at the heels for helping the bad guy and cheer the faces for making sure the heel got right back in the ring. And always love lumberjack matches. And these two guys, I mean, they tear down MSG 3 straight times. And I really could have picked any of them, but I went with the culmination, the lumberjack match, because Hulk wins it by pinning Savage to end that feud in 85. But obviously, there'll be much more for them on the horizon. Okay, number 3, another great trilogy of matches for Hulk at MSG. This time it's Don Morocco. And the match I picked was in a steel cage at MSG on June 21st, 1985. And you can see Hulk has color, Morocco has color. This is a battle. They did 3 matches as well at MSG. They drew ridiculous numbers, too. We're talking 23,000 plus between the arena and the Felt Forum adjacent to that, where people watched on closed circuit. This was a huge, huge feud in 85. And maybe some people only know Morocco for his work, like with Bob Orton in a tag at the beginning of WrestleMania 3, or even some of the stuff worse beyond that he did with superstar Billy Graham. But he really was an unbelievable heel, one of the great promos of all time. And Hogan and Morocco just absolutely tear up Madison Square Garden. This very well could have been number 1, this match. But I kind of gave an edge to the next 2 because of historical significance. But if you're looking for like a gem match that wasn't on pay-per-view, something you want to watch that you haven't seen before, maybe if you're not in the Northeast, look up this Garden show from June of 85, because this Hogan and Morocco match is just as good as just about any match in this entire decade. All right, number 2, I went with the historical significance for the last 2, and they're both historic and iconic and really important to the business. And the first one is Hulk Hogan defeating Roddy Piper by DQ at the War to Settle the Score on February 18th, 1985. So we're about a month away from WrestleMania 1 here. And it's such a huge night for the business because MTV goes live at MSG to show this. And it's an unbelievable watch. The celebrities that are in the building, from Danny DeVito to Andy Warhol to just the most random cross section of like New York celebrities. I think Billy Martin might have been there. Just a hodgepodge of people that all get interviewed on MTV. It's the Rock and Wrestling. So much heat behind this. Piper had kicked Cyndi Lauper at the Garden after breaking a record over the head of Captain Lou Albano. He slammed David Wolf. I mean, Piper was just had so much heat here. And they do a DQ finish because there's more money to be drawn. And they do that at number 1. Hulk Hogan and Mr. T defeat Paul Orndorff and Roddy Piper at WrestleMania 1 on March 31st, 85. And it's almost like these 2 are together and the other 3 are almost a separate list, because you have these unbelievable matches in 5-4-3 in terms of quality in the ring. And then 2-1 while still having quality in the ring. They're more on the list for their significance and the historic moment. And WrestleMania 1, it's well documented, Vince McMahon's all in. What would happen to the company if it didn't succeed? And, these four guys made sure it succeeded. And it wasn't just them. It's, Muhammad Ali and as a guest referee and, Bob Orton in the one corner or, Superfly Snuka in the other. And it's really controlled chaos. Hogan said he had to kind of keep an eye on Mr. T all day because he was super nervous and they didn't want him to go AWOL. And, Piper talks historically about how he wanted to get T right to the ground because this way there was less risk of exposing the business because T wasn't exactly a trained wrestler, but man, do they pull it off. The heat is unbelievable. And, despite McMahon's gamble, these guys pay it off for him. And it's a huge success. And the whole business and the whole company kind of goes from, here from there. And, culmination maybe at WrestleMania 3 when you get 90,000 people at the Silverdome. But a really great list of Hogan matches here from 84 to 86. We kind of didn't include Hogan last time, and we kind of won't next time. But I thought in the middle, let's do his 5 best, 84 through 86. Hogan and JYD over Haas and Terry Funk from Saturday Night's Main Event is number 5. Number 4 is Hulk over Savage in a lumberjack match at MSG in February of 86. Hulk over Morocco at MSG in June of 85. The War to Settle the Score match is number 2. And the main event at WrestleMania 1 is number 1. Okay, one more list to go. This one's sponsored by the Sportscasters Podcast at sports_casters. Find us on Twitter. More information there. Jeff Passan is going to be on the podcast soon, as well as Adam Lazarus, who's the author of a new book about Ted Williams and World War II. We're also going to have Brian Hoke, rhymes with Coke, he told me, who has a book about Aaron Judge's 62 home run chase last year, and Sean McDonough also on the next few episodes of the Sportscasters. All right, top 5 sports moments, 1987 through 1989, the last 3 years of the decade, and there's some big ones here. Wayne Gretzky is traded at number 5. He's traded to the Los Angeles Kings on August 9th, 1988, and just a shocking moment. The first ever 30 for 30 is called the King's Ransom, which is about this trade. The Kings get Wayne Gretzky, Marty McSorley, and Mike Krushelinski, and the Oilers get Jimmy Carson, Martin Jelena, the first round pick in 89, 91, and 93, and $15 million for Wayne Gretzky. In a trade you really can't win if you're Edmonton, but did they? Right? They go on to win another cup in 1990. Gretzky never wins another. Gretzky does lead the Los Angeles Kings to the Stanley Cup in 93, where they lose to the Canadiens. But really what's important about this trade for hockey is that Wayne Gretzky made hockey important in Los Angeles and in the West Coast. And there's players in the NHL now who will tell you that they're only in the NHL because Wayne Gretzky played hockey in Los Angeles and they learned to love it. And this was the start of a really important era for hockey and trying to expand the game into other markets. Some work better than others. There's success stories like Dallas or Carolina or even Florida. And then there's nightmares like Atlanta and Phoenix. But Wayne Gretzky really changed the game again, this time off the ice, by being traded to Los Angeles. He was married to a movie star, Janet Jones, and a lot of people blamed her for that trade. But it was really more about money and the situation that the Oilers are in and the play that the Kings owner wanted to make. And that's Wayne Gretzky being traded. A stunning move on August 9th, 1988. Number 4, Michael Jordan eliminates the Cavs at the buzzer in the first round of the 1989 NBA playoffs. And the reason this isn't higher probably is because it's only the first round. Also, it's game 5. The first round then was 5 games, not 7. But I can remember exactly where I was when I watched this play. And I just remember the the buzz in the room. We were at my dad's friend Dave's house, who was a big gambler, and he had money on the Bulls to win the series. And I just remember Jordan making the shot and him just, reacting like you react when you win a big bet and thinking, wow, what a killer. What an absolute killer. On their own court, just puts a dagger in the Cavs. But they'd gone to lose to the Pistons, of course, and not break through for another year or two after that. All right, number 3, Joe Montana leads a game-winning Super Bowl drive. 34 seconds left. He finds John Taylor to win Super Bowl 23 on January 29th, 1989. A famous story, as the drive starts and everyone gets in the huddle and everyone's tense, trying to beat the Bengals, trying to win the Super Bowl. You're behind. And Joe Montana's kind of looking around. He's like, hey, isn't that John Candy? He spots John Candy up in the stands and just kind of relaxes everyone. The late, great John Candy, rest in peace. But an unbelievable drive by Montana. I have this weird thing where the first Super Bowl I remember watching was in 1985. The Bears and the Patriots in the Superdome. And I remember the fridge scoring the touchdowns. Actually at that same guy, Dave's house. And I remember he was big on the big money on the Bears that day. The 1985 Bears, a historic team. But I can pretty much tell you where I watched every single Super Bowl from that one to now. I just know where I was. I know who was there. And I know what happened that day. And on this day, I was all alone at my grandma Paula's house. And my grandma Paula came to the United States in the 40s as a 12-year-old girl, had to come all alone with her 9-year-old sister. And they had to get on the boat alone and come to America and find their mother, my great-grandmother, so that they could escape the Nazis and start their life here. And it's such a brave thing if you think about it, to get on that boat at 12 with your sister and hold her all the way, keep her safe, keep yourself safe on that boat. And I was with her that day, and she had just started to get sick with dementia, with Alzheimer's. She would pass away in 1995. But I remember this day, while this was going on, she was making me sauce and was going to make me some noodles. She always made me colored noodles with sauce. And she knew that's what I liked. And I remember running from the living room and the kitchen back and forth during the drive, and her saying, Spata, it's going to be ready. It's going to be ready. Tell me to wait. Because I kept checking to see if it was ready. And one thing I would notice as I would go in the kitchen is that the jar of sauce was still on the counter, that she was making the noodles, but she wasn't warming the sauce. And, she just forgot. But I had her back and I just ate them without the sauce. And it's actually a beautiful memory to this day, and telling her, the 49ers are going to win. And she didn't know nothing about football or care. It's funny. The other football moment I watched with her actually was when Lawrence Taylor broke the leg of Joe Theismann on Monday Night Football. We were coming home from something, and I was sleeping over her house. It was just her and I there. So I was sleeping in the bed with her. I think this is like 84, 85. And I was asleep. I was 4 or 5. I was sleeping in the bed with her. While she was getting ready, I put Monday Night Football on her little TV she had in her room. And I remember back then it was such a privilege for me to be able to watch any of Monday Night Football, as I was usually in bed by then. It didn't even start till 9 back then. And I remember we're watching, and of course she comes out right as they're like replaying this gruesome scene of Joe Theismann's leg getting buckled under by Lawrence Taylor, and she's like, "What are you watching? You take it off of the TV." We go to bed. So we had to go to bed. But this one I watched with my grandma, and she made me sauce without the sauce. No big deal. It was fine without it. I had her back. And that's number 3. Number 2, this is maybe a little high, maybe. But to me, nothing was bigger in the 80s than a Mike Tyson fight. When Mike Tyson was fighting, it was a big deal. And if you had a chance to watch it, whether it was on HBO or pay-per-view or whatever, you did it. And you did it with a bunch of people. It was a party. It was an event. And it wasn't, will Tyson win? It's how quick will Tyson win? And his match on this night against Michael Spinks was supposed to be different. Michael Spinks was supposed to be someone that could challenge Mike Tyson, someone that could possibly beat him. And this is June 27th, 1988. It's in Atlantic City. I think it's at Trump Plaza in Atlantic City. And he beats the guy in 91 seconds in devastating fashion. And the buzz in the arena and at the parties and wherever you were when Mike Tyson knocked someone out, it was different. It was just different. And this fight is the one I'll watch on YouTube because you can watch the whole thing in 5 minutes. You watch the entrances, the announcements, the fight, 5 minutes, it's over. But it's an unbelievable display of power and confidence and swagger and destruction. And talk about a killer, Mike Tyson. In his prime, I've never seen anyone as destructive as Mike Tyson. And of course, unfortunately, he wins the Buster Douglas fight in the 8th round. He won that fight in the 8th round. Go back and watch it. But they blow that, and then he loses in the 10th. Kind of kills the mystique. Then there's the Desiree Washington stuff. He goes to jail, and it was kind of never the same. But trust me, back then, the night of this fight, there's nothing bigger, nothing more important. And it's, iconic. Only to be beaten by one more iconic moment, and that's Game 1 of the 1988 World Series, October 15th. Kirk Gibson heroically emerges from the dugout. Wasn't supposed to be available that night. Rumors, maybe could he pinch hit? Not one, but 2 knee injuries. One leg shot. The other one just a shot. And he strolls up to the plate against Dennis Eckersley, who has been an absolute beast for the Oakland A's that year. The number 1 closer in the league. We're at Dodger Stadium. The buzz is crazy. It's, October baseball, the World Series, and they need a hit. So Tommy Lasorda calls on Gibson, who emerges from the dugout. And iconic calls of this home run by Vin Scully and Jack Buck. Take your pick. They both have iconic calls of it. I don't believe what I just saw is one. But unbelievable moment. He hits the home run in the right field stands, kind of says that he knew Eckersley was going to throw him the backdoor slider and sat on it and knocked it out. The Dodgers ended up winning the World Series in 5. But they won it right here. It was over, right? They knocked out the closer. They had beaten them. I think the one game they won was Mark McGwire walk-off home run in Oakland in game 3 or 4. But it was over right here. Kirk Gibson knocked them out with one punch into the right field seats at Dodger Stadium. And what a moment. And make sure you watch it on YouTube and listen to Jack Buck and Vin Scully's call of this because they're both great. All right, top 5 sports moments, 87 through 89. Wayne Gretzky traded in 88. Michael Jordan eliminates the Cavs in Game 5 in 89. Montana to Taylor, Super Bowl 23. Tyson knocks out Spinks in 91 seconds in 88. And then Kirk Gibson home run in 88. That's the top 5. And that is the list. All right, that's it for today. 3x5 with Steve Bennett, the 1980s edition. I want to thank everyone at the North-South Connection, 24-inch podcast, Sportscasters Podcast. Like, subscribe, comment, do all those things. They're going to cancel me soon. Please watch. Please tell your friends about 3x5 with Steve Bennett. I'm out.